Happy Sunday.
Good morning, everybody.
Hope you're doing great. We're so glad that you're here. We got about 5 minutes till the service kicks off. I'm Jessica.
Hey, and I'm Brett. We are both on staff here, and we're just here to say welcome to you online.
Welcome home.
Welcome
home.
That was really good, Jessica.
It's so true. But we're doing really good. We are here in Wilmington. It is hot.
It's been hot. If it hasn't been raining, it has been like you are in a tropical rainforest in the Amazon.
So hopefully fall's coming soon. The rain came, and now it feels a little bit.
It's a little
bit cooler. But school starts tomorrow, so we have some really great things that happened last week and happened this week. And last weekend we did our annual Stuff the Bus.
Stuff the Bus. Now, if you haven't been around, you know about Stuff the Bus. We've been doing it for years, but you haven't been, and maybe you weren't able to be here last week. We had a big old school bus out in the parking lot, and actually all of our campuses had did a form of Stuff the Bus. And it's just an opportunity for those of us who call Port City our home to be generous to the kids in our community that are going to school. So we collected a ton of school supplies for students, and here in Wilmington, we pretty much filled up the bus.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, all right, y'all went a little bit overboard and filled the bus. So there's some awesome pictures of the event. Just our volunteers collecting all of our supplies. And communities and schools was really, really happy with what we were able to do. So.
Yeah, it was so fun. Usually the past couple of years, they've just asked us, our church specifically, to do backpacks. But then this year was so fun. So then backpacks are cool. We can stuff a bus with backpacks. But I love seeing all the different things. So we don't have the totals for that, and yet hopefully we'll be able to get that in this week. So we can celebrate that as a church. But all 3 campuses, local organizations were able to help. So it was really great.
And if you've driven around Wilmington at all, you know the college students are back in town because the traffic is insane out there.
I went to Target and literally
there's nothing.
I just need like a Rubbermaid container and they're all gone.
Yeah.
Because students are back. And last Tuesday, we kicked off Overflow, which is our college ministry here at the church. And it was such a great night. We had over 500 students that joined us for the first time. And Overflow is just a great ministry to connect. And they really, really, really want you to feel loved, feel welcomed. And you'll see some pictures there. And this Thursday, we are kicking off our community group. So Tuesday nights, we have our service that happens with worship and a message. And they do a lot of things to connect before and after. And then this Thursday at 7, we have community groups that are launching.
Like Bible study, kind of connecting relationally, going
smaller,
a little bit deeper, smaller environment.
Groups.
Great chance to get connected, really connected to the church.
Absolutely. So they do a really good job on their social media page. So any information you need about Overflow, PC3 Overflow on Instagram, and you can get any events coming up or anything they have coming up. So definitely give them a follow. Or if you know a college student, just send it to them just so they can be connected. It's a great way to connect with them.
Yeah.
And then middle and high school students are back.
Yeah. So with the start of the school year, we are kicking off our middle and high school student environments. So 2 Wednesdays from now, on September 1st, we are kicking off our middle school ministry. Both are going to be back in Studio 3 this year. So we're really excited about being kind of back where we're used to doing our ministry this year. So September 1st, Tsunami, our middle school ministry, kicks off. And then after Labor Day, the Sunday after Labor Day, September 12th, our high school ministry, Ripple Effect, is kicking off. So we can't wait to be back with our middle and high school students. We just had leader training this past week, and it was awesome. Lots of new leaders and returning leaders. We just really want to help kids feel connected and have a safe place to process their faith and to build an authentic faith. And that's what we're going to be doing.
And do it with others that they are.
Oh yeah, and bring their friends. Yeah, those are 2 great environments. So if you have a middle or a high school student, make sure they're at our kickoff events.
Yeah, or you can go to portcity.church/students.
Yep.
And so all the information you'll need for middle or high school Tsunami and Ripple Effect is there. Well, today we're really excited, Mike. We're kicking off a 5-week series called Welcome Home. And so I think
sometimes I feel like I live here. So
we really do.
It is my home.
Welcome home. But it's a really great series that we're starting about community and what does it mean to be home and to call the church home. And so we would love to connect with you. Any questions that you have, if we can help you in any way, definitely the connect card.
Yeah.
portcity.church/connect. If you need prayer, if you have questions, and if you can't remember all the different things we kind of told you this morning, it definitely is a great way to get there, and we can get you that information. So we're really excited. Mike's going to start our gathering off this morning, so grab your coffee, and we'll see you next week.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Hey, Jeff. So we want to welcome all of our sixth graders who'll be hanging out with us this morning. You'll hear more about these guys in a bit. Thank y'all so much. Got some of their leaders down there with them. And listen, as we get started, I want to do a couple things. One is I want to certainly welcome you guys to Port City. I also want to go ahead and address the elephant in the room, which we'll be doing. Now, y'all know I sent an email out this week talking about our posture on masks and what we're going to be doing. And I just want to say to you, thank you so much to our church. It's a true, and it really is just I'm so encouraged by how our church responds to most of the chaos in our world. And one of the things I want to really kind of drive home is as people who follow Jesus, we need to understand how to navigate the chaos in our culture. We also need to have language to help us help other people understand what we're doing. And I want you to have that as well. You guys realize that we have a ton of chaos in our culture. You know that, right? It's like chaos. And somebody needs to do better. And I just think it ought to be us. That's how I think about this. So yeah, I think somebody needs to do it. So I know that when I kind of wrote some things out, because I know that we get inundated with all the political madness, and I don't want us to get sucked into political agendas or projecting motives over decisions that we make or I make. I'm fine with people disagreeing. What I'm not fine with is people projecting motives that aren't true over decisions that we make. And what you need to understand as a part of Port City Community Church, when we make decisions, we're going to take responsibility for them. That's always going to be our posture. I think that should be the way of leadership. We expect that from our staff. We expect that from our congregation. And we're not going to blame other people. We're not going to hide behind mandates. We're going to make decisions, and we're going to take responsibility for the decisions that we make. And part of where I feel like what's happening in that posture, the only thing that I have, is trust. It all hinges on our willingness to trust one another and to be willing to learn how to trust one another. We're going to be talking about that in this series that we're actually doing starting today. And aside from that, one of the things that I hear in our culture, especially regarding the discourse around masks and mandates, is that people talk about it being government overreach. Now, this is not government overreach. This is government irresponsibility. It is irresponsibility in the messaging. It is irresponsibility in the media and the continual perpetuation of the messaging. And like I said earlier, somebody just needs to do better. And I think we have an opportunity to do that. That's why we're doing this. You can clap, that's fine. I don't want to make a big deal, but I just want you to understand like what's at stake here to model for the next generation and to learn how to actually leverage the influence we've been given really effectively and as good stewards under the grace that we've received. As people, we're trying to learn how to walk in the way of Jesus and to be the kind of people that represent his heart to the world. And if we've seen anything this week, it is the absolute chaos and heartbreak that exists in the world around us. And if we're really honest, if wearing a mask is the greatest restriction of our liberty we've felt, we've got it pretty good. So we need to have a way for us to move forward. And this is exactly what I said in the email. This is exactly our posture. I hope you guys understand that today, in this room, and in fact in all of our rooms, we will have healthcare professionals. We'll have nurses, we'll have doctors, we'll have people who work in the healthcare profession who are on the front lines every single day, and they are tired, and they are exhausted, and they are overwhelmed. I've talked to a lot of them personally. I'm sure you have. Some of you may be here this morning. And here's what I would say to you. If they walk in and they see us wearing a mask and they feel encouraged or they feel hopeful or they feel like, hey, people are out here to help me, would we not be willing to do that just for that sake? And the reality is I know we would. I know we would. So that's what we're called to do. Jesus invites us as his people not to find the churches that agree with us, but the churches that follow Jesus as he takes up his cross and he invites us to do the same. So that's what I think the opportunity is. I believe that the world needs the church to be the church, and we have a really, really unique opportunity to do that. And I hope that you will be willing to join me as we do this together. Can we do that? But somebody needs to do better. Somebody needs to do better. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the chance we have to gather. My prayer has been this week as I just see the difficulty in Haiti that's just compounded by political corruption and hurricanes and earthquakes. Afghanistan, and there are Christians, followers of Jesus, who are going to be meeting today under the threat of death. God, my prayer is that you would use maybe what we do here today to gather and just to lift you up, to pursue you, to seek you, to learn from you. That you would use, our kind of praise and our efforts to fight for the people around the world. And that maybe we would use something that happens here to bring encouragement to them. God, I do ask that you would use us to be a light, to be a beacon of hope and of healing that this world so desperately needs. And God, that we would not let anything stand in our way of trying to do that better and better represent and more fully represent who it is that you are and what it is that you long to do in the lives of human beings, of people who've been made and created in your image. So I just ask you to do that, just to kind of gather us and unite us in that this morning. And I thank you for your promise that declares that to be a possibility. So as we enter into that, we do that humbly and yielded to you and your will and what you want to do in this moment. And I lift all of these things to the name of your son, Jesus, who is our King. Amen. How many invite you guys to stand as Rod and the band come and lead us this morning? Thank y'all so much.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now know that's true today, that his promise still stands. And like Michael was talking about just a few minutes ago, we know that this world is just filled with chaos right now. But what I also know is true is that in this room, there are people, lots of us, that are walking through chaos in our own personal lives on top of all of that. And this song is incredibly powerful. The message inside of this song, the truth inside of this song is powerful for us today. That as we look at this chaos, whether it's in our world, in our lives, both, all of it, we can know that one thing is true, and that's that our God is good, that his character still remains intact, that who he is will always be who he is. That his promises are true for you, for me, and we can cling to that, and that can be our anchor today. And so this is a song of confidence in the midst of chaos. And so let's just sing this. Let's sing this bridge a couple more times. From a place of confidence, we know he is who he says he is. Come on.
I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. In the darkness, we were waiting without hope and without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophet. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit,
midst of the chaos, in the midst of the anxiety and the fear that has taken hold of us, I pray that in this moment we can open ourselves to you and welcome you into our lives so that we can experience peace, joy, your mercy, and your grace, because you are able to do all things through your Spirit. And so, God, we declare that in this room, in our lives as a church, that you are lifted higher than everything else. You're lifted high in our lives. You're lifted high in this world as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And in the love that we show others around us, you are lifted high. So God, we give you all of us as we prepare our hearts to hear your word, as you penetrate our souls and our minds to give us your mercy and grace. So God, we honor you, we thank you, we give you all the glory and honor and the praise, and we welcome you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Carlos. Church in the room, you can have a seat. That really was such a powerful declaration that we just declared. But God really is good, and he is good on his promises, and he is walking with us every step of the way, through every moment, through every challenge, and every victory. God is with us. God is leading our church. I feel more confident about that than ever. But this movement is not a movement just led by Mike and our leadership. It is truly led by the vision that God has given them and continues to bring to bear in all of our lives. I just want to take a moment in the middle of our gathering today to just have a second. I just pause and take a big, deep breath of gratitude for the amount of things that we are a part of as a church. God is moving in so many ways, and though some of them might seem small, they are so, so special. And they are worthy of recognition and worthy of celebration together as a church. And one of those things is we have a group of sixth graders in the room with us this morning, right down front. I know, it's so good. They're walking through a multi-week thing we call Sixth on Sunday, just an opportunity for them to learn what the church is and begin to really take steps to engaging here with us on Sunday. I think it's so cool. What a perfect picture it is that we're a church that has sixth graders sitting on the front row for an hour and 15 minutes on Sunday morning. I believe that's really special. And such a picture that what God is doing is not just in one generation, it's in so many different generations. Another generation that I believe he's just rising really something special in is our college generation. On Tuesday night, we had like 550 college students in this room. I know it. And it's so hard to stand in the back of the room and begin to just feel emotional. When you look around the room and people in our world say the church is dead, the church is very much alive, and God is moving in a really, really big way. And there's so much for us to be grateful for. There's so much for us to be hopeful for, because God is leading our movement. And today we just invite you to take a step towards being engaged in the movement and in the life of our church through giving. And if you've never given before and you want to take a step, you can simply text Port City to 77977. The information's on the screen right now. You can do that, and we're just going to send you a link back that gives you some really easy next steps that you can take to taking a step towards giving. We don't want this to be something that feels like we're applying pressure. We want this to be a thing where we believe as a church we are all called to be engaged. It's an honor thing, and it's a privilege for us to be able to participate in this way. So we invite you to do that. And then over the next few minutes, church, I'm so excited for us to hear a friend of mine's story, and she has been leading at Overflow for the past couple of years, and I've gotten to see her from a distance, and she is so, so special for so many different reasons, and you're getting to hear a little bit about that. But she's by far one of the funniest people that I have ever met. She's borderline crazy. She's so, so awesome. Jenna Medoro is in the room right now. I know, I'm so excited. And this morning when I got to the church, I was sitting up at my desk and I pulled up her story to watch it, and it really just moves you to this really special place to hear what her story of engagement and what God has done and what God is doing in her life. So church, I would just encourage you, whether you're online or you're in the room, like sit up, get ready to hear Jenna's story together, because I really believe it's going to leave a really, really big impact on you and your walk with the Lord. So let's watch Jenna's story.
I was in a place in my life where I desperately was seeking something more. And I think that seeking, that longing that I was looking for was my identity as a child of God, and to experience home for the very first time in my life.
And so, Overflow, will you help us welcome to the stage now Jenna Mondoro? Let's go, Jenna.
Hi, Overflow. Okay. I know how it looks to live broken. I know what that feels like. And I know that there are probably a lot of us in this room that are living broken.
It was very unexpected. In March of 2018, my dad, he passed away of a sudden heart attack. People talk about like earth-shattering moments. There's nothing that will make you question everything quite like grief does. Being very much a daddy's girl, which is a huge part of my identity. When I didn't have that anymore, I was seeking something to fill it. When I got to college, I tried on the party scene, I tried on worldly success. I tried to see if getting affection and attention from people would fill me, and it would bring me contentment for a moment, but I would wake up hungry the next day. So I dabbled in a lot of things to try and fill what I was looking for. But funnily enough, that hole in my heart was father-shaped, and that is what I was seeking. I was seeking a father, and not just my earthly father, but my heavenly one.
My story and my walk with God started very tangibly with an invitation to church.
I was raised in a atheistic family, and so I was not looking for a church.
I was getting invited to church literally twice a week, every single week of college.
And I said no for a very long time. And it was nothing other than a move from the Holy Spirit that was like, hey, maybe tomorrow. October of 2018, I came to Port City, and I remember standing up for worship. The song was Who You Say I Am. The line was, I am a child of God. And I was just like overcome with emotion, and never heard that sentence before of like, you can be a child of God. That seeking, that longing that I was looking for was my identity as a child of God. Lots of tears. I was like, swamp eye. I met him for the very first time in that auditorium. It was worship and the environment that was created and the people that I was encountering as I walked into church. The table had been set, and I got to sit down with God in that moment.
When I came to church, I wasn't just stepping into a building, I was stepping into the kingdom of God for the very first time.
And so I started attending Overflow on Tuesdays, learning and growing alongside all of these college students that were like also on fire for Christ. October of 2019, I got baptized at Overflow. It was a crazy, amazing experience. Started serving on the host team, and now as an intern with our ministry. It's very important to steward that responsibility very well, because there could be students coming in that were just like me, who had never been to church before, and Overflow is the first time that they're going in. The coolest thing I have ever had the opportunity to do is speak on stage at Overflow. It was an echo of my story, of where he brought me through into this community, into this fellowship and home.
That emptiness and that brokenness that I was feeling my freshman year, there is nothing on earth that will fill us other than a life-giving relationship with God. That is the only thing that will make us whole.
I can't tell you how many nights I've spent in the parking lot, just sitting in my car, looking at the church. And it's not because this place is, more holy or more anointed than any other place, but the people here and the community here and the leaders and the volunteers here take life with God so seriously that it feels like hallowed land when you step in here. The beauty of Port City is that it feels like a home because it's an extension of the kingdom, and I love that. That is something that I get to be a part of.
That's why. That's why when we started the church 22 years ago with a handful of college students, hoping and believing that God would do something that would begin to ripple throughout the generations. And so we're starting to see that firsthand. And I think when we consider who we're becoming, and the way we state this at Port City Church, is we want to reach people and help them walk with God, so that in order for us to experience life with God together, we've done a whole deal on this. I'm just going to put it in here so it'll be out of my way. For the world. And this begins to define who we are as a church and what it is that we are about. When I think about, and Jenna, I think Jenna's in here, incredible job. Thank you so much for not only being willing to share your story, but just taking the time and to put it, to articulate it in that way. Because, one of the things you said that is absolutely right, as you said, you never know, who's walking in these doors. And the reality is that every single week in every single place, whether it's overflow or ripple effect or tsunami or any other places that we provide, someone is walking in this building, in this space, into your place, whose life is more than likely hanging by a thread. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know where they're at in their sort of headspace. You don't know what's happening in their heart. And what I believe is if you can carve enough space out for people to encounter God, He is absolutely faithful to shape us and to shape and to change and to call and to pursue in ways that are life-changing. And they're not only life-changing, they're generationally changing. For some of you, you're experiencing that. You're the first kind of redemptive generation in your family line because the things that have gone before you have not been super helpful, or worse, they've been incredibly harmful. And so you get to sort of live out this redemptive promise that God has that goes from generation to generation to generation. And what we have to do as a group, as a church here in America, is really decide, what is it we're going to be? What is it we're going to be? Most people in America, right, in our culture, pursue church just like they pursue anything else. Do I like this enough to keep coming? Was I entertained? Was it good? Is it what I agree with? Is it what I already think? And so we pursue it. And the things that we like, we keep doing. The things that we don't like, we stop doing. And the thing is that what we long for, what we want, this idea of belonging, this place that feels like or becomes home, where our hearts are actually safe enough to be formed, is it doesn't operate under the same rules. It doesn't operate by consumer rules. It doesn't mean that the things you like or don't like are going to be the defining metrics. There's a different system, a different ordering that we have to learn how to buy into and understand. And the tension in this is that the community that we long for takes enormous work. It takes enormous work to give of ourselves and to avail ourselves and to learn how to do some things that we're not inclined to do in our culture. And if we're really honest, we don't actually have to do it. And so therefore, a lot of times it's just easier to pass. But what I do believe, and I want to make this really clear, I do believe that the world needs the church. I mentioned this at the beginning of the service. I believe that there's an opportunity for a people to do better than what is being modeled almost everywhere else in the culture. And I want to become that people. I want to be that and be a part of that. And I'm going to invite you and ask you to consider that as well. But we've got to understand what this is. What is a church and why does it matter? What does it mean for us to be us? And what does it matter if we are us in this world around us? You've got to wrestle this question. You've got to believe in some things in order to be a part of what it is that I think God is going to call and ask of us in the next few years, and I think for the sake of the next generation. And so all this kind of begins, and let me give you a couple of assumptions. Actually, I'm going to do this first. Forget that. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And He created the heavens and the earth as an overflow, as an outflow of who He is, His great love, His hesed, the essence of who He is. It flowed out like an artist produces something. It came out of who He was and out into what we see as created. In the beginnings, God created the heavens and the earth. And all throughout the scriptures, we see this imagery and this language that the earth is full of the Lord's glory. The earth belongs to the Lord and it is full of His glory. And you see this all throughout this. The heavens declare the glories of the Lord, and day after day it pours forth His speech. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then He created humanity as sort of the pinnacle of this. I don't have time to get into all the details. But the point was that He would have a people with whom He would dwell. We were created in His image, to bear His image, to rule and to reign and to contribute to what this creation would become. That was the assignment in the beginning. There's an incredible dignity to being created and being called and being caused to be. All of us possess that. So in the beginning was the heavens and the earth. And these two things, they existed as a space, a real true space where God would dwell. That was the intention. You know, this didn't make it very far until the whole thing broke, and then there was a separation, and you basically had, I don't even know how to draw this. The earth, now separated from this, was no longer a dwelling place for God. The human heart was no longer a dwelling place. There was separation. There was separation. So we existed over here in this space separated from God. And what we had to do in order to survive is we had to start drawing lines. We had to start creating ways in order for us to get along, to operate, to make sure we didn't kill each other. So what began to happen was civilizations, God himself developed rules and laws and a ordering of this thing that's called the world. We're going to talk about this next week. The world system. And you had to create commands and rules and lines. It's interesting that when God created the earth, it says that it was formless and void. And the first thing he did is he created a division. He said he separated the light from the dark. And he separated the day from the night. And he separated the waters from the land. All the acts of creating were to draw lines that create beautiful things. And then he named them and he called them, and in naming them, he called them into existence. And he gives us the same power. When Adam was given and called or invited to name the animals, he was co-creating, he was participating with God. You and I still have the same capacity today to draw lines that create things, to use words, to name things, to call things. Some of you know that because the things that you have been called have caused you to come alive. Someone believed in you, cared about you, encouraged you, and it created something in you. Others of you know that to be true because the things that you've been called or the things that have been said to you have created far worse. They've created the patterns that keep you stuck. So you draw lines to protect yourself from those things, and it's more and more isolation. Life with God operates in this thing of beauty. The other system operates in this place of life without God, and this is where we find ourselves. Under this system, this rule of life without God. When you don't have life with God, you don't have the rule, the governing force sufficient enough to actually help us come alive. So you have to create rules and regulations. And so what I want to give you is I want to give you a couple of things to kind of set up this idea of home and what I believe we can be a place. And the question, I suppose, would be this. Do you believe there is a place in this planet where you can sort of take a breath and find enough space to not just sort of escape from the world, but rather to stop fighting to survive? Because some of you, that's what your day in and day out looks like. You just feel like you're trying to survive. You're trying to keep from killing your kids. You're trying to keep from choking your husband. You're trying to keep from you're trying to survive. Do you believe there's a place where that can sort of dissipate, even if it's for just a moment? Do you believe there can be a place in this world, right, where the weight of the world that you feel most of the time just sort of lands somewhere else for just a moment? Do you believe that place exists? Right, so here's the thing. We all know it does. We have places like that, far too few places probably for many of you. And so maybe the question is, could we become that place, not as a substitute for our own homes, but as a place where our homes get extended and expanded to actually include people in ways that the world is desperate for? That to me is the challenge of the church. What I've learned this week is I've listened to all the craziness in our culture. I've become more and more and more convinced that if people just thought like me, the whole world would be better. Anybody else think that? You don't think if they thought like me, you think if they thought like you, right? We all think this. And it's maddening. And so this work is incredibly hard. Like if you just thought about the condition of the people in this room, right? How many of you this week, some of you, how many of you have had a bad day? I want to see your hands. You've had a bad day this week. All right. Anybody had just a bad week, right? It's just the whole week, right? How many of you guys have felt overwhelmed this week? How many of you guys have felt anxious this week? How many of you guys have felt stressed out this week? How many of you guys have been so mad you thought you were going to come undone this week, right? Anybody? These are the people who are driving next to you on the road every single day, right? You might want to be nice. This is what's happening. Now listen, I'm not a doomsday guy. I'm pretty optimistic. But I will tell you, there's some good reason for us to feel a little wonky in the world today. That's not invalid. Lots of uncertainty, lots of places where it feels like things are coming apart at the seams. And when that happens, what I feel is this draw to go home, to be home. I'm very fortunate that my home has become a haven, a safe place. My wife and my kids are mostly gone now. They come in and out quite a bit, but they're mostly, I don't know what they are now, I guess, either way. And so they're there and they're not there. But either way, when I come home, like everything just seems to feel a little bit better. And it's not because it's my house, it's because it's my home. It's the people, the place. And so I think that's what our world needs. And I think that's what actually God's people have been designed to become for the world around us. This is what I want for us to explore today. 3 things I want to set up sort of as our foundation. I'll tell you we're going to go over the next few weeks. I'm going to give you a prayer. We're going to pray a prayer together. First of all, home is not a place. We know this, right? We say it's not a house, it's a home. Home is not a place, but it needs a place. Physical proximity is important in our culture. You can't do it online or digitally. We have lots of digital expression. We know that. We're grateful for that. We have a lot of people who can't get here for various reasons. We recognize that. We are so grateful. We do everything we can to connect in that way. But we've got to have a place. We've got to have proximity to people. Home works when it's proximate. When I'm away from my family, I can FaceTime them, I can talk to them, but there is nothing like coming home and like being proximate with them, being in the same space with them. So it's a really powerful thing for us. We're going to talk about that. Number 2, home is where we are both safe and responsible. It's not just that you get to use my Netflix accounts, it's you also have to take out the trash. It's both of them. Right? I know the kids are like, I don't understand, I got to do chores in the house. What do I, yes, because you cost your parents a ton of money, right? That's what you need to know. Just kidding. So I'm not, but that's not the point. And so there's this idea, right, that you've got to feel safe. You've got to feel like you can say anything to your parents. You got to feel like you can let them in on what's happening. But you also have to be responsible for the culture in the home. If you're constantly a thorn and a pain, it's going to affect everybody else. It's both safety and responsibility. And then number 3 is home is where rules give ways to relationship. You know this. You know this. At some point, rules give ways to your relationship. When I was growing up, I have 2 brothers. I've told you this before. But my brothers, one older, one younger, and we had a station wagon. And this is right about the time when seatbelts were made mandatory, so we could no longer just throw one of us in the back. We had to actually sit in the seats. And what inevitably happened is we're sitting there on a long trip, and then it was always one of the other brothers. They would do this. You stop, boys, right? This is how, you know how it is. And we're like just elbowing each other, and they go, don't touch me. And you would go, right next to him, stop. And then eventually, you get yelled at, and then we draw a line. You don't come on my space, and you don't come on my space, and we draw these lines to make sure that you don't infringe on my space or my rights at any cost. And you know what they would do? They would run right up to the line, like sit right there, just to annoy the crud out of you. So when you have to start making rules to accommodate that behavior, it's not because it's a good system to operate by, it's because nothing else seems to work. You can't just say, hey guys, can y'all act like your brothers? Yeah, that's what we're doing, right? I mean, the language just, so you have to create dumb rules like drawing lines in the seat. I mean, we did this, we had to share a bed with my brother. And he's like, I'll show you. And he draws a line. You can't come on my side. I was like, good, because the door's over here, dude. Good luck, right? We draw these lines. We get ourselves boxed in. So we know this instinctively doesn't work. And if you're a parent, you know the kind of rules you have to make to keep your kids from creating more loopholes in the rules that you've already created. And this is an endless cycle. We've talked about this before. But it's because it's the only system that the world has. So God comes to us. He comes to us to call back to himself a place in which to dwell. In the old covenant, what he drew for himself to dwell was a temple. It's kind of a Greek temple, but you get the idea. And then they would offer sacrifices. And out of these sacrifices, right, God's presence, God would come and he would dwell and they would experience life with God. And it would happen here for just a moment, a space in this window. And the new covenant, what the new covenant tells us is that Jesus came and he abolished this one, made it obsolete, and he created a new one by which you and I would actually become the dwelling place of God, the reconciliation of heaven and earth until this gets fully redeemed at some point in the future. God created the heavens and the earth. Sin separated that reality. And so now he lives, for those of us who are in Christ, he lives in us. He dwells in us. We are the space where God dwells. We're that holy space, that sacred space where God's presence is seen and his image is experienced in the world around us. And this really is the call of the church. This is how it's given to us, how it's demonstrated to us. And we see this in Simon Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, writes a letter toward the end of the Bible. It says this in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood. He's talking about you, those of you who are in Christ. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood. This is all language they would have understood from their days in this temple model. You're a royal priesthood. You are now these things. You're God's holy nation, his special possession. Why? Why have we been assembled together? That you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness and into his wonderful light. He begins to draw lines. He begins to say, you were once in this way ruled by darkness, and now you are now a child who belongs in this new way. And the purpose of you being this possession, this people, this nation, is to declare the praises of God. And this doesn't mean that we get together to sing songs about him. What it means is that we are given, our lives are to be evidenced, or to be, the word is to bear witness, to declare who he is and our experience with him. In a world that is ruled on this idea of life without God, we are to become these representatives of what it looks like to live life with God. And we are assembled into a holy nation, and we are assembled into a chosen people and a royal priesthood and these other things we'll talk about later. And then he says this in verse 10. Once you were not a people, but now you are a people. Once you weren't a people, but now you are a people. For once you had received mercy, I had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Most of us read verses like this, and we just read past them. And if you grew up in a particular kind of ordering, like more of Reformed or whatever, you go, well, those people got mercy and those people didn't, and that's just the way it is. Not what he's saying at all. He is connecting this to people who belong to God and have experienced life with God, and people who do not experience life with God. And what he does is this, and this is what you have to be really interesting. He said, you were once a people who were not a people. Like you didn't belong. You didn't have little pink dots in you. But now you have pink dots in you. Because why? Any guesses? Because he said, at one point, you did not receive mercy. And at another point, you had received mercy. Do you know what the idea of mercy and receiving mercy is not like, I feel bad for me and you didn't get what you deserve. Mercy is the way the Greek translates the idea of God's incredibly rich love. It would be how it would be translated the word hesed. Hesed is a Hebrew word that means or is used to express God's pursuant, his loyal, his fierce, his all-encompassing, his faithful love to you. In fact, there's a great book called Inexpressible. And the book, basically, the premise of the book is that the word hesed, there is no word that is sufficient to fully express God's love and who he is at his essence. So we have to use words like hesed. And then he adds this really cool thing, and this will be the way you can impress your teachers, sixth graders. You can talk about linguistic gravity. They'd be like, whoa, where'd you learn that? Nothing, I was just reading, a little casual reading over the summer, linguistic gravity. What it means is there are words that you always have to have, they pull other words to themselves to describe it. So you don't just say love, you say his steadfast love, his merciful love, his faithful love, his loving kindness. It gets all these words because it's beyond description. To those who have received this isn't that you're aware of it. To receive something in this idea is to take hold of something such that it takes over. So here's what's interesting about this. What God did for us, he came and he drew some more lines. He said, you were not a people, and now you are people. In our culture, we draw lines as well, but we draw lines in order to exclude people. I was talking to my daughter, Madison, about this. She's 25, and she says, Dad, the world draws lines to exclude people, but Jesus comes and he draws lines around people to include them, to all who received mercy, to all who would receive, to take hold of his image and his essence such that it takes over. To all of them, he gave them the right to become the children of God, and he is building them into this place. That's what we are. That's what we are becoming. The reason this matters, right? Because what a lot of us end up thinking is this sort of serves as an escape from the world. This serves as a way for us to get out of this world and maybe sort of have a little bit more heaven on earth for ourselves, but that's not it at all. In fact, one of the things that we use as sort of the essence of our statement of faith comes from the Lausanne Covenant, which is written in like the 1970s. We'll put this up there. We're going to keep moving on. But I want us to read this together. This is what we use, and this is talking about God and his purposes for his church. This is a little technical, but it'll help you kind of get some language or some handles for what we're doing. He is calling us out of the world, he has been calling out from the world a people for himself. He's drawing lines around people, calling them to himself to experience life with God. And then he's sending them back into the world as his servants and his witnesses for the extension of his kingdom and the building up of Christ's body and the glory of his name. Look at this. He is calling us out into this place, but he doesn't remove us from the world. He actually sends us into it, so that out of this space, we begin to impact and affect and cause all these other things to happen. He is sending us back into the world as servants and to witness. Witness doesn't mean to go and give people facts about what you believe and why it's more right than what they believe. To witness means to bring your experience of life with God to bear on the world around you. To bring your experience of your life with God on the world around you. What that means is you have to first experience life with God in order to allow that life to come to bear on the world around you. This is why we talk about this, that your pursuit is first Christ and his presence and his glory and who he is. And then out of that, our lives begin to flow. We talked about this last couple weeks, in fact. And so that's what he's saying. We do this by serving and by bearing witness. He goes on, it says this. We confess with shame that we have often denied our calling and have failed in this mission. Would that be a fair statement? We've sometimes not done this super well. By being conformed to the world or by withdrawing from it. Yet we rejoice that even when it rests in these earthen vessels, the gospel is still a precious treasure. This is one of the challenges I think that we face in the middle of everything else that's going on. To be able to understand that when we receive his mercy, to understand what a treasure that is. What an humble life-altering, life-giving reality. It really is. Part of the reason I love hearing stories like Jenna's is it just reminds me of the power and the beauty of the gospel, the reality of it. What has happened is we are called to bring that to bear on the world around us, not to solve all the world's problems. What a lot of us, I think the church has wrongly fallen into this sort of trap, is that we think that we are a better version of the world. So if you'll come and kind of hang out with us, you'll experience everything that you want in the world, but you'll sort of get it on God's terms. And so what we end up doing is we keep trying to get God on our side to get our thing moved forward. And God's like, it doesn't work that way. That's not how it works. The church is not a better version of the world. The church, this place, is something fundamentally altogether different. It's different. And I don't know that we're going to try to do this next week a little bit more fully. I don't know that we fully see that like we need to. This is why I think Jesus keeps saying, seek first the kingdom, seek first the kingdom, seek first the kingdom. Because otherwise you're going to keep overlaying the world on the kingdom and you're not going to get it. We cannot fall prey to that. The stakes in our culture at this day and age, I think, are too high for us. Our job is not to solve or to fix. And don't get me wrong, there's redemptive activity happening. We're going to talk about that. But the power of the gospel, I want to put this up there, the power of the gospel and the effectiveness of the church is not that it serves as a solution to the world's problems, but rather to be a faithful witness of hope and the reality of another way of life right smack in the middle of them. There are some people in your world who don't need a trite answer to what's happening in the world. They need to see someone navigate the chaos with incredible hope, incredible faithfulness, and incredible resolve, knowing that there is something else at work and at play and at stake. That we are not subject to the ways of the world and the circumstances and all the chaos. We have a different way of life. That's what the world needs to see. They need to see people navigating chaos faithfully. They need to see people contributing to healing in ways that are tangible and that are hopeful and that bring help to other people. We're going to talk about these things over the next few weeks. And thank you very much. And so when we mistake that we are somehow a better version of this, we abdicate our place, and I think we diminish the power that God has actually given to us. It is a treasure that we've been given. So Jesus comes and he says very clearly, those who have received mercy, those are the ones who are his people. The challenge is that this means that we have to not just come and demand that everybody protect and agree and draw the kind of lines that we do. It means we've got to be willing to lay everything down, and follow the one who has called us and invited us to follow him, the one who has given us life. I see people posting about looking for churches that have different positions that they agree with. And you don't see very many people going, I'm looking for a church where they'll ask me to lay my life down for the sake of the gospel. No one's posting that. Because we fundamentally want people to do what we want them to do, how we want them to do it, and we want them to do it. That is not the kingdom. It's just not the kingdom. It's fundamentally different, and it's far more precious. I want to show you, and this is back in the day when God's talking about this dwelling place where he's replaced this dwelling place, and now he says, we are now his dwelling. We're the place where people come and experience this. We are. Ephesians chapter 4. Let me say one more thing, and then I'll stop. I know we got to go to lunch. Going to lunch, I know, right? So when I think about this, I try to be really simple about this, because what is it God expects of us in the world? He really expects two things, and it's really simple. He expects, number one, for you and I, in every exchange, calls us, invites, empowers, expects, all those, I'm using those the same. He invites, empowers, causes, expects us to represent the integrity of his image. He wants us to represent him the way that he is. Not the way we want him to be, not the way we think he ought to be. He wants us to represent him the way that he is. Our clearest picture of that is Jesus. The Bible says that as clearly as it can. You want to know what God is like? Look at Jesus. That's what we're supposed to represent every circumstance with integrity. We don't overlay ours over him. Thing two is that we always lead with the influence of his love. His great, loyal, pursuing, fierce hesed is what we leverage the influence of his love every single encounter, exchange. Therefore, we have to be with him, submitted to him, and fueled by him. This is what life with God looks like. So this is what happens. This is what I believe has the power to happen if we, and actually it wouldn't even take this many people. Probably half of what's in this room would be enough. Ephesians 4. Let's read this together. This is speaking of Jesus himself. For Jesus himself is our peace, who has made these two groups, the Jews and the Gentiles, these two that are divided. He has made them one, and he has destroyed the barrier that separated them. The lines that humans created, God has destroyed them. By setting aside in his flesh, that is the crucifixion, the law with its commands and its regulations, and here was his purpose. His purpose was to create in himself, one new humanity out of the two, and thus making peace, and in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he has put to death all the hostility that stands between us. Wouldn't that be a great thing for our world to experience? If there was no hostility between us, and people could walk in here and feel that maybe God would draw a line around them to include them in his great mercy, and in doing so, they too could become a part. He came to reconcile. He came and he preached peace to you who are far away and peace to those of you who are near. For through him, we both, all of these two tense sides, have access to the Father, but by one Spirit. Consequently, you no longer live in that world. You've been transferred. You're no longer foreigners and strangers, but you're fellow citizens with God's people, and you're also members of his household. Welcome to the family. Perhaps the most dysfunctional family in the history of the world, but welcome to it. I love this. We're fellow citizens with God's people and also members of his house, built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, with Jesus Christ himself as the chief cornerstone. And in him, the whole building is being joined together as it rises, and it becomes this holy dwelling place for the Lord. And in him, you too are being built together to become the dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit. That's a treasure. That's a treasure. So I want to close, and I want to add the last little line from that section of the Lausanne Covenant. Covenants and confessions were used to just articulate things in kind of a crisp way. I just want to look at this and then add this last line as our prayer. The work that God has been doing is that he has been calling out from the world a people for himself who belong. And he is sending them back into the world to be his servants and to be his witnesses for the extension of his kingdom, to continue to draw lines that include people, for the building up of his body and the glory of his name. We confess with shame that we have often denied our calling and failed in our mission by becoming conformed to the world or by withdrawing from it. Yet we rejoice that even when this treasure, when the gospel resides in our broken, fallen, stubborn, sometimes annoying earthen vessels, the gospel is still a precious treasure. And I love this. Look at this. To the task of making that treasure known in the power of the Holy Spirit, we desire to dedicate ourselves anew. What if this group got it? What if just this group got it? What would it mean for the people that you come in contact with? What would it mean for all the people like Jenna and the stories ripple out who walk in these doors looking for a place to call home, hoping that they'll find a spot where they can breathe, and what they find is not only breath, but they find the life for which they have been made. It needs to be us. It needs to be us. Father, I ask that we would just in our own way sort of take a breath and desire to just dedicate ourselves to that task anew. For some, God, they need to experience the gospel or re-experience the gospel as a thing of beauty. For others, God, there's formative work, there's dismantling of pride and ego, there's healing from harm and abuse, there's the gamut. There's grief, there's fear, there's anger, there's I'm too comfortable to care, there's all kinds of things. So my prayer is that you would just meet us, that we would come to see the invitation of our lives with you as the treasure worth everything. And God, we would dedicate ourselves anew to making that reality, that invitation known. So lift all of this to you. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, who is our King. Amen. To all our folks online, thank you guys again for being here this morning. I'm going to send out to Brett. He's going to give you guys some instructions for next week.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us here online. What a powerful message and an opportunity to kind of think about things a little bit differently as we think about what it looks like to welcome home the people around us into a new way of living. So we're really excited about this series and what it's going to mean for our church. And so a couple things to let you guys know about. First of all, if there's anything that we can do to connect with you, to help you connect to our church, maybe you want to get more information about volunteering, or you have some prayer requests. If there's ways that we can connect with you, we'd love to point you to the Connect card, portcity.church/connect. And when you fill that out, somebody on the other side, a real person, is going to contact you and try to help you figure out what is your next step and how we can connect with you as a church. Also, just a quick reminder that our student ministries are kicking off. So we're really, really excited about the next couple of weeks as we launch our student ministries. I know the kids are not really excited about going to school starting tomorrow, at least here in the county, but we are excited about kicking off our student ministries. So our middle school ministry starts on September 1st, Tsunami. So Wednesday night, September 1st, make sure your middle schooler is in Studio 3 at 6:30. We'd love to have them there. And then our high school ministry, Ripple Effect, kicks off on September 12th on the Sunday night after Labor Day, all right? So we look forward to having your middle and high school student with us at our student ministry kickoffs in the next couple of weeks. And lastly, want to let you guys know about a parent network event. We're kind of kicking off the parent network. It's an opportunity for our church to really help you as a parent think about what does it look like for you to be the best parent that you can. And we want to come alongside of you. And that's kind of what the Parent Network does. We are having an event on August 30th. It's a Monday night here in the main auditorium. Stuart Hall, who many of you guys are really familiar with, he is going to come, and we're going to be talking about how to handle depression and anxiety when it's a part of your family and your kids are experiencing depression or anxiety. I just think it would be a really helpful tool for anybody who's a parent or anybody who knows a parent. Like if you're a grandparent, to come and be a part of helping learning a little bit more about what it looks like to really help the next generation deal with anxiety and depression. All right. So if there's anything we can do to help you guys connect in any way, don't forget the Connect card. We look forward to seeing you next week, either here online or here with us in person. Until then, have a great week and see you then.